lighting panel, Sharon Zinga, Araya Haley, Jess Krieger, and Naomi Gold.
Hey everyone, welcome to this fantastic panel, Women in Lighting. And today we're going to be exploring themes about lighting design and technology and the changing landscape. My name is Sharon Huizinga. I'm your moderator today. I'm a lighting and projection designer and also associate professor of lighting at University of Cincinnati's CCM. And I'd like to start by asking each of our panelists to introduce yourself, a name, a little bit about what you do, and where you're based out of.
Hi, my name is Araya Haley. I am a freelance lighting programmer and I make some content about lighting programming as well. I am based in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and I'm loving my Midwest life and my busy entertainment life as well.
Hi, I'm Naomi Gold. I'm based here in Las Vegas. I currently work as the lighting supervisor for the David Copperfield Theater. Before that, I worked as the lighting director for the world's largest children's museum in Indiana, originally from Colorado.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jess Krieger. I use she, her pronouns. I'm based in New York City, and I primarily work as an associate lighting designer for commercial theater. And I am a co-owner of the app called Vor.
Fantastic. So the major theme of what we're talking about today is the changing role of a lighting designer. That something that started as a single individual being a creative and implementing a design has turned into an ever more intricate and complex orchestration of many elements. And this is as technology increases, as shows get ever more complex, and as we start to see the role of lighting designer shift into someone who is bringing together lots of different types of people into a single cohesive design in the end. But this role has changed dramatically over the last years and decades. And I want to start by asking each of you in turn, what is a piece of technology or software that is now integral to your role that was not something that existed 10 years ago? Let's start with Jess.
I feel called out. I have to say Vor because it's very much a see a need, fill a need, and we saw a need for archiving and documentation, especially in video-based referenced videos. And it's absolutely something I use every single day and something a designer always asks me for.
I have two answers. They're very different. One is I know like previs has gotten a lot bigger, um, and like something a tool I personally haven't felt the change of like it being added, but I'm very thankful that I've like walked into lighting programming at a time when previs has come so far, and it's such like a beautiful tool that helps me to depict what a show can look like, and I can use it for my designers. And so it's been really fun to be like, okay, I'm at the tail end of this, but hearing all my friends even talk about like how much it's changed over the last 10 years has been interesting. And then my other like little piece of software that's personally changed my life is I use Notion for everything. Like documenting my whole life, like keeping myself organized. So for me as a programmer, it's more than just like I'm organized in the desk, but I have to keep myself like, where is this information coming from? What was in this email? Like, if you know me, I get lost everywhere. So now that I can keep everything in one place, I feel less lost when I'm on a job because I have everything I need in one page.
Okay, mine's a little different. I'm still working in an older theater, so we don't have a lot of like the amazing technology. We're working on it. But in the theater that I'm in, we don't just work for David Copperfield. We also have Aces of Comedy, so we do reoccurring shows that come back every year. So for me, I mean, the software that I hugely rely on is actually Lightright. I didn't have it when I first started in this field, but I use Lightright for everything, just so that I can track exactly what I did for the show last year, so that I remember exactly what to do for this year and the forthcoming years as well. So, like this week, David's Dark. So we have some comedians that come back every year during NFR, the National Finals Rodeo, and I rely on Lightright completely.
So a lot of different things. I think we can all agree that our industry changes quickly. Like we're in a rapid iteration. And one of the things that I'm curious to hear from you three is every production that we do is a collaborative event. Has the nature of collaboration changed during your career? How you're collaborating and who you're collaborating with? So, Jess, you're working a lot on Broadway productions, and that has a fairly defined collaboration structure where there's a director and there's other designers, and you're going to work together in a way that everyone more or less understands and they're expecting. And I'm curious to hear from everyone, but let's start with you, Araya. Who are your main collaborators, and how is that happening? And are you seeing that change over the course of your career?
It's interesting. So a lot of my career has been within tech support, and then I started freelancing 2 years ago. So I feel like in the last 2 years, I've done so many different types of shows that I'm still kind of gathering. Like, okay, if I'm on TV, who am I talking to? As like the key lighting programmer, I'm talking to the effects programmer mostly, or my lighting director, right? I don't have a lighting director on a concert or a theatrical show that's helping me light people's faces. So, like, coming into this year and doing TV for the first time, learning how to communicate with that person was like a totally different thing. And like, it didn't involve any technology, but just like, what kind of questions do I need to ask up front about, like, oh, are these audience lights, or are these for the special keys, or are these for the people in the pit? And so, yeah, so there's even like, I've been learning a lot. Like, okay, I'm in TV. This is the role I talk to when I'm in concerts and I'm programming. I'm talking to my designer, but like, what question should I ask my designer so that I'm most useful in previs? And because I keep doing lots of different things, I like learn something and then have to put a pin in it, go to a different show, and learn a different way of communicating. So I'm a little all over the place at the moment.
Is that frustrating that you're trying to like learn a workflow, and then it turns out the workflow is not applicable in situation X, only in situation Y?
And it could be, but I think it's a puzzle. I love puzzles. And so I'm like, okay, I'm putting the puzzle of who do I communicate with together. And
I
it's
think
very
anyone-
abstract.
I think anyone in this industry, we all have to love puzzles, at least some. Like, I love puzzles too, so I get it.
Everything's a puzzle.
How about you, Naomi? Where are you seeing, who are your main collaborators? How are you collaborating with them? And are you seeing that show up in different ways, depending on where you are, or in different ways that has changed over time?
Yeah, so in my current role, my main collaborators are actually the client that we're working with, whether it be David or a different comedian. Sometimes I interface directly with the client. So with David, I just go to him, talk to him directly, talk to him on the phone, whatever. But with some of our comedians, I'm either interfacing with them directly, like Tim Allen, I didn't interface directly with. I would talk with his production manager. And most of the time for our shows, other than David, it's all email based. So we very rarely call each other because everyone has such different schedules, and they're on the road, and we're working on our resident show while we're still trying to get information for our comedians and our other shows. So most of it's actually email based, but I'm either working directly with David or our other clients.
And Jess, same question to you to find out, is anything changing in that Broadway environment where like collaboration is happening in a different way, or it's different groups of people who are now involved in that?
Yeah, I think something that we're seeing across the Broadway market currently is more. We've always been an incredibly collaborative art form, but what we're seeing is more and more integration across department. So, pretty much across the board now, almost every single element of the show is talking to each other in one way or another. And that, as always, increases who you have to talk to at any given moment. And especially as an associate lighting designer, we all like to say that we're the chief of staff or the manager of the lighting department to make sure that, okay, we know that we are using a tracking follow spot system. What do we need in order to successfully set this up? We need time on stage, dedicated time on stage. So talk to production management and scenic. We also need, is the sound department also going to be utilizing this tracking system? Do we need to talk to them? Is the video system also coming into this? And so as we're seeing technology expand and become more integrated cross-departmentally, is starting to shift the tone of the collaboration on a day-to-day basis.
Let me throw a follow-up question, and let's start with you again, Jess. Are you seeing new roles emerge or merge with each other or change, like the skill set associated with assistant lighting designer used to mean X, and now it means this completely other thing. Um, and I'm wanting to start with you because again, Broadway has a little more history and a little more definition and roles. So I'm curious if that's changing, new roles, new humans, or merging of different things that we used to think of as separate.
I think we're certainly seeing an expansion across the board. And from my seat, I think we're on the cusp of introducing a couple new roles, which is, I think we're very nearly close to needing a systems designer. So someone who just makes sure that the network across the board can talk to each other, is safe, we're protected from other systems. And networks are getting so complicated at this point that we need somebody who is incredibly focused and talented in that role, and especially potentially shifting like CCTV and comm out of, sorry if I offend any audio friends here, but I'm sure you're also sick of dealing with comm, and shifting that into an infrastructure perspective. And I think we're very nearly there for wanting like an integrator, which is a very specific term, but somebody who has the capacity and the knowledge to say, okay, you need this bit of information, you need this bit of information. How do we make those two talk to each other?
Araya, do you have any thoughts on roles that are emerging or should emerge, are about to emerge, or are combining in new and unexpected ways?
Yeah, so I work with Zach Track a lot, and so I've put tracking on quite a few shows at this point. And a lot of the time it's lighting who's pushing for it or sound who's pushing for it. So then they're the one who takes over integrating it, but then video says, "Oh, I want to jump on board." And now, cameras want to jump on board. And so now it's like, okay, then who's actually in charge of this tracking thing? Right? Is it lighting? Is it sound? Should you all be involved? But I think as we move forward into tracking becoming more and more a part of every show that we do, because it's adding another layer to the design element across the board. I believe that we will see people who come in like, I'm the tracking tech, or I'm the tracking, I don't know what the name will be, but that person will be the one who makes sure the tracking, because it is a separate thing outside of all four departments touching it, is stable, working, and then ready for all the other departments to dip in and utilize that information to enhance their own design.
Yeah, that makes sense. How about you, Naomi?
Yeah, it's interesting that you were talking about like a network designer or just like an integration designer. So in my previous job, we actually hired an infrastructure designer. So audio, they designed their audio, I designed lighting, and then we actually hired an outside specialist to integrate everything together. We were building an interactive exhibit that had this huge light up fountain that kids could play with, and if you touched this lit up and this audio sounded. It's really fun. But we hired an integration specialist who is in charge of taking our special lighting and audio and integrating it to run together on timecode. So we already kind of did that actually in the kind of the museum worlds. But here in my current job, we're kind of noticing that projections is falling underneath either lighting or audio. So in my at MGM, our audio designer or supervisor, he's also the projections supervisor. So luckily that didn't fall under lighting this time, but I have noticed that most of the time, if there is not a separate projections designer, it merges with lighting, and then lighting is in charge of it.
So lots of new things coming. Technology is changing really quickly, right? And Jess, in an early conversation, we were talking about, you said something that really stuck with me. Are we driving technology or is technology driving us? Please expound.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I personally feel as if technology within the entertainment and the theatrical space is currently chasing technology that exists outside of the theatrical space. I find that I rarely feel as if we're on the cusp of something, which is just my personal take. And it feels like we're always saying, oh, they've done it. Now, how do we get there? Versus us saying, no, we've done this, and being the drivers in that regard.
You also brought up, so one of the things I've noticed in the entertainment industry is that generally speaking, people come into the industry because they want to be in the industry. And then they learn, oh, there's networking that's part of this, or there's this other thing that's part of this. And they learn that, but they're not coming from that and then discovering the industry and moving into the industry. I wonder if that's something that you also have observed, and why we think that is. Is that because if someone gets an IT degree, they're going to go work for Google because they have more money? Is that fundamentally what's going on?
Yes.
Okay, that was a short question.
I mean, there's probably a level of like they don't know, right?
Yeah.
You got an IT degree, they're like, okay, so you can go over here, here, and here. And no one's like, it'd be really cool. You can also go on the road and set it up in all kinds of weird venues across the world. I mean, I'm not getting an IT degree, so I don't know what they're doing at their career fairs, but are we going to their career fairs and finding these people? Like, I don't know.
That's a really good point. This might simply be a PR thing where people are unaware of this really, really interesting problem solving possibility applied in a way that no one told them about. Do you all think that is there something inherent about coming up in the entertainment industry that would be unlearnable if you had gone and had some whole other career?
No, I don't think it's unlearnable. When I was at the museum, our IT team helped us integrate networking. So it was different because, in a theater, you don't really have an IT specialist, but we did. So if there was networking that we didn't understand, I would just go up to our IT team and ask them questions and we'd solve it together. But it's interesting because, people go into IT that may have learned computer programming or something beforehand, but at least for me, I got into this industry because I watched a show on Broadway and I was like, I want to do that, but I don't know what that is yet. So I went the collegiate route. I got my Bachelor of Arts, I got my Master of Fine Arts. So I learned more about this industry because I went to the collegiate setting. But there's other people that learn more about this industry because they start as a stagehand and they just work and talk to people and just keep saying yes to jobs. And that's another way to learn what this industry has to offer as well. So
I always find when I'm talking to students or people who are up and coming in the industry is there's a very narrow narrative that continues to be that you have to starve to do this, which is not true. And I think that it's a systemic issue from the dawn of time where we have created this idea that in order to be creative, to create art, to just exist in a space that has so many freaking flashing lights, is we have to struggle. And I think that people don't realize that there is money in the arts. Like, you can make an entire career out of doing this, and so many people think that you can't. And part of, I feel, my journey is looking kids in the eyes and saying, no, you can do this. Like, it will take a long time, it will be hard, it will be difficult, but I promise that you can make a career out of this.
I like that you do that because what I do on the side, I do a lot of mock interviews for people that I know in the business. So a lot of people that I know that are professors, every year they ask me to do mock interviews for their students. So their students apply to a real job posting that they found online. They send me the job posting, so I know what they're applying to, and I set up a whole 1 hour interview that I'm interviewing them for this position, and then I break the veil and I talk to each student one on one about just how I got to where I am, what questions do they have. And the one that they always ask me is there money? Are we going to starve if we do this? How do I make a living in this industry? So it's still inherent in, I don't know where people are still learning this from, but it's still inherent in even, 2025 that people are learning that there's not money in this industry, which is not true. Like, you're looking at 3 professional designers, programmers that make a living in this industry. And if you work hard enough, it is possible.
So we do. We have a publicity issue in terms of attracting talent, in terms of bringing people in from a variety of different backgrounds. And the next question I'd love to ask you all is, like, we are looking for people to fill certain knowledge gaps. As soon as something starts moving fast, the way technology does in lighting, inherently there's going to end up being some places where we're missing people and knowledge. And why don't we start with you, Araya? Where are you seeing a knowledge gap where you wish there were more people who knew how to X?
I mean, I'll come back to tracking a lot because I work with it so much. And it's funny because we were literally all just standing over there going, okay, how do we better educate like the United States on just the United States? We weren't even talking about the whole world, but like on tracking. Like how do we get this information out there? How do people want to receive it? Like our product or like tracking is a different type of technology than what we've seen before, especially in lighting. Sound has dealt with this idea of, abstract, something they can't touch or they can't see, but having to troubleshoot it. Whereas I feel like in lighting, a lot of our issues are a little more tangible, right? We can see them. Our lights are
Such
flickering.
a good point.
Right? Sound is like, there's the sound over there and I can't see it. But like, okay, they know it's related to this wire or whatever. Whereas with tracking, we're back to like that concept is like, there's this thing in the air that's causing my lights to do this, but my lights aren't doing that on their own. Right. And so, how do we get that information out there to students, but also to people who are already touring and doing shows and, wanting to go use the technology, but they don't have a technician that can take out the tour. Right. Like, yeah, as a designer can have all the ideas they want, but if you don't have a technician that can execute it, well, that's it.
How about you, Naomi? Where are you seeing knowledge gaps?
I would say networking. So I've noticed that a lot of people understand power flow, but they're not understanding signal or data flow. And even just, people that I've worked with, easily they can troubleshoot a light that's not working. But when I start saying, oh, I've lost control of all of Universe 2, their mind goes blank. They're not understanding or know how to figure out the data flow or the networking to get a whole system or a whole universe back online.
Jeff, I suspect you have a similar.
No, I'm actually going to shift the tone. My answer is going to be shifting towards soft skills and soft power. And I think one of our largest knowledge gaps that we're seeing is how to interact with other people and I'm going to swing it back to collaborate and how to actually just at the end of the day have a conversation about the job that needs to get done and move forward. Because I feel like so frequently it's just talking to somebody and recognizing that the person across from you might need a different way of going about something or teaching them in a different manner instead of saying, well, this worked for me. Why isn't this working for you? And bringing a little bit of humanity into that.
How much of the collaboration that you're doing happens in a virtual setting, and how much is happening in person, live with other humans?
So when I'm working with clients, it's all online. It's all email based, like I mentioned. But when I'm working with the other two supervisors, so at MGM, I'm the lighting supervisor. There's an audio and then a deck supervisor. We collaborate every day together. So we're always either texting each other, emailing each other, or most of the time face to face. Because in the end, it's the three of us that have to get the show up and working. And we supervise a team of about 24 stagehands. So it's up to the three of us to actually get the show working, but we get our information by collaboration through email most of the time.
And for me, it's going to be, different every show depending on how much time we all get in person with each other. So like if I'm programming at home, I worked with a designer earlier this year and she used this like Dropbox. I forget what it was called. It was cool. She like uploaded the videos and then could like put all the comments in it. And then the artist could put comments in it. And then I could like respond back to them. And I was like, this is a really fun way of getting my notes. And she was also really good at being like, I love this, I don't love this. And like doing the the compliment sandwich. So that I was like, it kept me motivated at home programming alone. Because I didn't have her in the room with me. Whereas like, when I'm in the room with the designer, it's a lot more of like instant feedback of like, okay, do this, move this over here, or hey, go away while I work on something and then come back in the room. So it's really just going to depend on what part of the process that I'm in.
And then I would say at this point, I'm probably 50-50 because pre-production is so typically handled online, Zoom, emails, etc. Especially most of the designers I work with are based in the UK. So there's always the time change. And but once you get on site, it's just 1,000 times easier to just walk over to a person and talk to them and just get the answer and get it sorted.
So one of the things I was curious about is, in in a lot of ways, we're now able to do types of collaboration in a virtual setting that allow for what you're talking about. Like we can have a more in-depth conversation before we ever hit the space. But then I was also wondering, oh, now that we've removed human to human interaction from a solid chunk of the process, is that part of what's creating some of this, the soft skill gap that you're talking about, right? I
Yep.
mean, at some point we do need to like hit the actual stage with actual humans and have skills in that. But if up till that point it's been virtual, I don't know that it's a double-edged sword, it seems to me, right? Like there's benefits, great benefits, and maybe you're losing out a little bit on practicing some of that.
I would say there's a difference though between emailing versus talking through like FaceTime video calls or whatever. Because before we all met, we video called, and I think you still get to learn the interpersonal communications, how to talk to a human being virtually. As long as you're, because when we talk, like I'm talking to you right now, I'm reading your facial features so I can understand not just what you're saying, but how you're emotionally feeling as well. So that kind of gets lost when you're talking through phone calls or email. So if I have to meet with a client virtually, I would prefer to video call so that we then get the face to face as well.
I know from when I was doing tech support, we have an office on the other side of the country, and they'd already been at work 3 hours before I got to work. And then, we would message each other or whatever, or like if they didn't message me back, I'm like, what are you doing? Where are you? I didn't know you were teaching a class today. Maybe it wasn't in the schedule. Someone showed up. And then, there'd be these moments of frustration, like, why can't I get a hold of so and so? And then it was kind of, I think it was during COVID or right before, I don't remember the timing, but in like our local office, we would do a huddle every morning, like 5 minutes. Everyone locally would say, what am I doing for the day? And it would just let the whole office know what the pulse was for the day. So I said, hey guys, what if we did a software team huddle? And then, so as soon as LA is online, New Jersey pops on for 5 minutes, and the five of us just say what we're doing for the day. And it literally, there were all those moments of frustration I had before when I couldn't get a hold of someone via text were gone, because now I knew what you were doing with your day, and I knew if I was interrupting you or if you actually had the time for me.
That is fantastic. So, like seeking ways to integrate connection, human to human, even in virtual environments.
And that connection would be for 5 minutes, and sometimes it'd be for 30 if we wasted a lot of time. But it really made us all grow as friends too. It was cool.
That sounds super fun. Um, so as we're talking about, there's some knowledge gaps that we're seeing, maybe some soft skills and communication, dealing with other humans, tracking, networking. So the next big question then turns into, great, how are we addressing that as an industry, right? So this is going to sound like a loaded question, but it's not, I promise you. Training for people in the industry, what are you seeing? How's that going? What are you seeing that's going well? What are you seeing that's not really working?
I see it's not going well for most people because it's so expensive. The cost is a hindrance to most people. For those of us that can pay for it, it's phenomenal. I love the online trainings because I can go at my own pace. I can go backwards and redo something that I maybe not didn't understand as well. But most people that I'm working with, they can't pay for it, and that's a big problem.
And are you talking here about like a degree program at a college, or just any training
Any
at
training,
which
like
needs to be paid for?
some online trainings are a couple $100s, and there's people that can't even swing that. So, I kind of steer people towards a lot of YouTube channels that might be free, and they may not give you all of the information, but they give you some of the information. But it's even just like, an online 4-week class that's expensive for most people.
But like from the offhand, as someone who is making training, it's a lot of my time. I don't like, I have to sit down, I plan every month. I have to go, okay, how much time can I actually invest in this month? I have 2 days off at home. Am I going to make content or am I going to spend time with my friends? Like, I'm asking myself this question and no one's paying me to do it. And I don't say that to be like prideful. I just say that to be like, this is my reality right now. And I see it helping people, but I also see it taking a lot out of me. So I'm like, okay, how do I get some cost? No manufacturer's coming to me saying, oh, we'd love to invest in this. Like, you're helping. So now if I want to make a course, I have to sell it, but I'd have to sell it at a price that makes it worth it for me. So
That's understandable. Like
discussion.
I'm not denying that people shouldn't get paid for the work they do. I just, where's the balance that you get paid?
No, I get it. Totally. I know what you're saying, but I'm like, okay, help us find the balance, please.
Things are expensive. It's I think my answer for training, I'm gonna swing back into education because I think that's so vital. And I think that educators bear such a responsibility, to be honest, because how someone is trained and what they get out of a program is so dependent on their leader. And it's what moment in time that you meet that person and where you are as a person completely changes how you're going to learn how to do this craft. Because at the end of the day, it is a craft that requires both an immense skill set, but also the ability to be able to critically look at something and say, okay, why am I reacting to this way, et cetera, et cetera. And considering that is some people come out of their undergraduate program ready to work, no problem, because they met the right person in time who trained them to become a professional and they're ready to do that. Some people aren't ready for that. And finding your place in this industry is so hard. And I think that we absolutely cannot underestimate where your place is. And I think that we could potentially do a bit more of a service to the people that are up and coming and giving them a little bit more leeway to explore. Because I feel like we put so much pressure on people to say, no, you have to know exactly what you're doing immediately when you're done with school or you will never succeed, which is just what I'm seeing with kids who I'm talking to. And they say, no, you don't understand. I have to be on Broadway. I'm like, no, you don't. So let's find something that take this pressure off yourself to explore, to see like, maybe I don't want to sit in a dark theater for this amount of time because I want to have a life. And there's plenty of other options that still give you space to do that. Um, and end scene.
I've noticed that a good way to explore if you're not sure what you want to do yet is internships. Yeah. Apply for all sorts of different internships and go do them. You'll learn more about the industry and kind of get an idea of what you want to do.
Oh, but now we swing back to the finances problem.
Exactly, right? Because when you're saying, let's make time for people to explore, I'm over here quite anxious. I'm like, you mean in a paid way, right?
Absolutely.
Because otherwise, we've just shifted the burden of who's getting paid for what.
Correct.
Because that becomes problematic. This is a question I often have because, of course, I'm sitting in an educator role, but like, whose responsibility is it to educate people in the industry? Obviously, I'm running a program, so there's a bunch of responsibility on me, but you've all brought up really good points about how that has to be shared.
I would love to take a moment just to talk about a program that we have through my union, which is USA 829, particularly on the Broadway collective bargaining agreement, which is a position known as the design member candidate. And something that we are working towards is this is a union position that allows you to work towards your membership that brings you into the space. So when we did Stranger Things The First Shadow in New York this year, we were able to bring on a design member candidate who had not done a full Broadway show, but knew how to make paperwork, how to do all these things. And we were able to bring them into the fold and say, okay, so right now your job is to make sure every single piece of paperwork that exists in this Dropbox is up to date at any given moment. Any change is going to go through you. You are now paperwork. And that position is malleable and can be catered to whatever that person may want to do. It just happens to be sponsored by USA 829.
Yeah, the sponsorship thing feels key because I don't want to suggest to people that they just go make content and not get paid for it. That's
No.
like that oatmeal cartoon about you're doing it for the exposure because you're an artist, right? At the same time, we don't want to create barriers for people who are interested, but now they can't do it because they can't afford it. That doesn't make any sense, right? So you're like, great, now we're just in this catch-22 situation. And I really do look to the whole industry and say, great, some people are going to come in and speak as a guest artist and maybe we can't pay them, but they'll be generous and do it. But at the same time, if you can create content and someone who's a dealer or a manufacturer or someone who can invest in a longer term return on investment in young people is able to participate in that, then we all win. Then we're starting to address that knowledge, all those knowledge gaps as a collective community instead of like, you do it. No, you do it.
Correct.
I think there's something important about all of us. I mean, my mentality is I work myself out of a job. Because if I've done that, I've trained you, I can move on. I can go ride horses for the rest of my life, which is the real goal. But but yeah, like what you're saying there is okay. So who's going to do that, and like where is that going to come from? But we can all have our like niche of like what we can invest back in. Like I know I can't invest in like a ton of people individually, but if you happen to cross my paths, and I've heard so many stories about, kids going, I just emailed so and so and now I'm here. And I'm like, that works? Why didn't I do that? Right? But it does, it works, and it's really cool. But the person you email has to also go, oh, I do have the space for this one person right now.
Emotionally and physically have the space.
Right. So like, but then you do have the ability to change that one person's world. And so I'm always like keeping that in check too. It's like, do I have time right now? Yeah, I do. Okay. I want to be that person that when they reached out can invest back.
As a supervisor, I take it upon myself to train my stagehands. So if there's something that they don't know or something that they want to learn, I take it upon myself to either train them myself or send them in the direction of go look at this, go read this, we'll discuss later. So it's kind of part of my job to make sure my stagehands know what I need them to know.
I am going to make a big, bold statement on the big, bright stage right now. And I think there is so much money in this room. And there is so much more that these manufacturers could be doing when it comes to sponsoring somebody and teaching somebody and bringing them up, because there's only a handful of them that have any sort of program like that. And it is going to go back to something I said when we were first going through this talk, which is, from my perspective, I find that sorry, everybody who's going to hear me say this, I find that the most innovative technologies are not coming from the people with the most money. It's coming from people who have had to grind it and to think outside the box and to pull things out of nothing, that are coming up with the most creative and innovative things, swinging back to technology and those gaps. But then those people also don't have the money. So
I hear a collective ask for participation on everyone's part. So there's participation from people who are early career or younger who want to learn things, to write the email or to reach out and ask for the training. There's participation from anyone who has money, please fund this. And this can mean many different things. Participation from individuals if they have space to mentor someone or to spend a half an hour with someone, whatever that looks like. And then as a collective, that can work.
Oh, yeah, it's not one person's going to solve this, right?
who has the time?
It brings me to one of my favorite topics, which is mentorship. Really, right? So I feel like we are in we're in an industry that thrives on an apprenticeship model, where we learn by doing, we learn kind of one-on-one, you learn with a mentor giving real-time feedback to something that's happening, but that's not really how we package the official training for things, but it's still happening. So I'm curious to each of you, did you have mentors that figured strongly in your life, and do you have people who you mentor?
I guess I'll go first. I have a interesting relationship with the idea of mentor-mentee, because I've always really struggled with what feels like a perceived power imbalance there personally. I can say I've had amazing educators and instructors who have completely shaped who I am today. And my take on mentorship is availability. And I like being the person who says, okay, I can have coffee this week in New York. This is 3 months from now. And I'm putting the impetus on you to say, you need to reach out to me 3 days before this Monday. So I know immediately if you're able to take the instructions, remind yourself to do this. And I can filter out a lot of people that way who I might be able to say, okay, I'm going to meet you for coffee. We're going to talk about your goals. What do you want? And then who can I introduce you to? Maybe it's not me that's the right person that you should be engaging with in this process, but, oh, you said you're interested in this. I know this person is interested in that. So I'm going to connect you with them, and I'm going to pull out my phone and email the two of you right now. And working towards that sort of connection. And just making sure to send people in the right way.
Jess, this is This is an amazing topic because I think we throw the word around a lot, right? Like mentorship. Oh yeah, but the key problem is, what is that? And so this is baked into this question, which you just answered. What does that look like? And I think that from either a mentor or a mentee, putting a form on it is really helpful. Like, would you be my mentor? This is what I mean by that. Right. Or asking when someone reaches out to you, what do you mean by that? So that it's not amorphous and loosey goosey.
Yeah, I think it's different on a one-on-one basis, right? If I have 4 people that want me to mentor them, they're going to want 4 different things from me. So it's not something that we can have kind of like a structured everyone that's a mentor or a mentee follows this guidelines. It has to be, guided by the person who's learning, right? Instead of me saying, I'm going to mentor you, you're only going to learn this. What do you want to learn from me? What can I teach you? Or who do I know? Because it's all about who you don't know. If I don't know something that someone's trying to reach out to me to learn, I'll guide them to someone that does.
Sorry, Jenny, use the microphone. Yeah, that's so true because there's this. I guess I call her my mentee. We've had this conversation, but she ended up moving out to LA, and she actually had reached out to a designer on Instagram, who then put her in contact with her TD, who's good friends with me, who said you should actually get to know Araya, right? So it's Instagram, email me. We get on the phone, and I'm like, dude, you're coming to LA, and now we're friends. And like I've like helped introduce her to people and been like, sent her over here, and she's gotten jobs other ways. We keep in touch, and but it was just this bounce until she found who she actually needed. Instead of, she didn't know to reach out to me, but like we got there.
And also think about it this way, like if you're a mentee that's looking for a mentor, you have to be able to put yourself out there. And I speak as someone, I'm a very like, don't talk to me kind of person. I don't like public speaking. I'm very much like a secluded person, but I have to force myself in this industry to go talk, meet people, say, I'm Naomi Gold. I'd like to get to know you. And that's kind of how at least that's how I made it. And to where I am is forcing myself out of my comfort zone and getting to know the people that are well known in this industry.
I know you just said there that how you doing with all these lights and stuff, by the way? You're good. I know you just said there's no way that we can formalize what it means to be a mentor and a mentee. I'm going to push back on that and say, is there a way that we could formalize? No, but in terms of somehow doing a better job in the industry of connecting all these people who would like to learn things with all of these people who would be happy to teach some things, and bringing them together. Because I will tell you, sitting in an educator's seat, I have industry in one ear saying, we don't have enough people, we don't have enough people, we don't have enough people. And I have students over here saying, they're amazing and they want jobs. And I'm constantly a bit flummoxed about how hard that can be to connect.
So I'm going to ask a question. How do we not have enough people? Look at this trade show right now. We have people in this industry that are just coming or starting school, all the way to people that have been in it for 50 plus years. I see a ton of people that may not have the availability or the mental capacity to do it, but I see plenty of people here that have the knowledge. It's how do we get that knowledge dissipated to other people? Yeah. So for me in the collegiate setting, it's a lot of bringing people in to talk to classes. So both when I was in school and now I'm on the other side of that, I'm going to talk to classes either in person or virtually or doing mock interviews or anything. And I love doing that. I don't know if I could ever, sit as a professor and do that for my whole career, but I love going to talk to classes, going to teach, a 2 or 3 day, whatever it be. But I see plenty of people right now that have the knowledge. It's just how do we get people interested in giving that knowledge away?
Do you have an answer for that?
No.
So I don't have an answer, but I think about it often because I have friends or mentor type people in my life who've taught me so much, but like on their quiet, behind closed doors terms, right? They're not getting on a stage.
Yeah.
And I've gone, oh, that was really good. That was a good quote. That was good info. Okay, I have the personality to say it louder. So then I've like been like, okay, this information is not mine, and I never want to take credit for it, but I know you're not going to preach it. So let me shift and be the one to go, hey, look at everyone else. Look at this cool thing I learned that this other person taught me. But I know that's not the solution for everybody. But I would encourage those of you who are like, yeah, you know what? That is my personality to just do it. Be like, okay, yeah, I learned this thing from so and it's not mine, but I'm going to share it with these other 10 people because that's how we keep spreading the knowledge around.
Well, and I think something that we plenty of people here in this room have seen your videos, have seen Nick Gonsman's videos, have watched Mike Wood's content videos and learned so much from those things. And I think we have to admit that content creation's really difficult. Like, I don't know how you do it.
How's it
first off.
difficult?
I'm not going to talk in the camera. This is already killing me.
You don't have to talk in front of the camera. No, but I mean, like, don't overthink it. I think we watch creators on the internet and we go, whoa, that took a lot. Some of it does. But a lot of the stuff, you just have to go, I'm just going to push it out there. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to say it. I don't have to be right. I don't have to do it perfectly. And I think that's been actually just like content creation in general, forget our entertainment industry aside, more and more people are saying, oh, we don't have to be perfect. We just need to put it out there. And like that's my encouragement now is like, oh, and I have to remind myself all the time. I'm like, don't have to be perfect. Just say it and go. Because like content creation is not about perfection, but quantity.
I hope that we are currently living through a shift towards valuing authenticity. And I'd love to hear your opinion about that. It's certainly something that I experience working with Gen Z. I'm like, hey, this is a generation that appears to really value that as a quality. What are you seeing about that out in the world? Do you think, is this a true statement I just made?
I don't know.
Okay.
In this industry, I've come across a lot of people that seem authentic and then turn out not to be. But I've also most of the people I work with are authentic. They don't, they're not scared of who they are, and that's kind of how you have to be in this industry is be the loud person. I have to force myself to be the loud person, which is not inherently who I am, but the more authentic you are, I think the more people are going to trust you and call you back to do work.
And like I'm personally kind of emotional. And I used to like be like when I was younger, I was super ashamed of this fact. And I think in this industry too, being around a lot of men, will still feel like ashamed to be emotional. And I have to remind myself, it's like, no, I was created the way I am. This is my personality. I'm emotional right now. I can get my job done. I looked at a production manager last summer. I was really upset. I was going to do my job. He comes up to lecture us. It was something I hadn't done, but he was lecturing all of us right before the show. I looked at Pip. I said, I'm going to do my job. I'm going to do it well. But if anyone gets on comm and talks to me, I'm probably going to start crying. And he said, okay, have a great show. And guess what? We had a great show. Halfway through the show, he said, hey, Araya, how you doing? You're doing great. And then that was all I heard. But I was super real with him. This is where I'm at. I'll run you a great show, but please don't talk to me.
Yeah, that's something that you have to retrain people and that I retrain people on the daily is that we're not robots. Like we are human beings. We have emotions. And even in this industry now, it's unfortunate that people expect you to not be emotional. They expect you to be a straight board that does the job and that's it. But we have emotions. Like we get stressed. We cry sometimes and that's okay. Like I'll cry in front of the people I supervise. I don't care cuz that's more authentic showing how I'm feeling than hiding it and trying to pretend I'm okay.
I'm going to swing back and say authenticity is a soft skill.
Yep.
And it takes a lot of bravery to be able to say, no, this is who I am and this is how I'm going to approach things. But I do also feel that potentially there is a issue with people using authenticity as a excuse for certain things. And just working our way through that is something I think that the industry as a whole could do better with.
Do you have any suggestions about how we might do that?
Not
Like I'm poking
Presently, I
you to
wasn't prepared for that
say
question.
more about this.
I think my say more about that will be when people choose harsh words and choose to manage something in potentially too firm of a hand and say, well, no, I'm just being real.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I gotcha. Thanks. That helps. Yeah. almost like using that in a vaguely weaponized way. Yeah.
Weaponized authenticity.
Makes sense. Okay, we're gonna jump back into the education thing. Just for well, I don't mean education necessarily formally, but how are people getting training in the industry? I'd love to know from each of you. Did you go through formal training? If so, what was it? What was something that worked really well about that you gained from that? And if you could wave a magic wand, what would get added to that experience that you had to make it something where you're like, oh, okay, that set me up for success?
Yeah, so I went through the collegiate setting. I think I mentioned previously I have my Bachelor of Arts and I have my Fine Arts Masters as well. So I went through the collegiate setting, and during my summer breaks, I would go work internships. So I would get hands-on, work in the industry, but I'd also get to meet these other professionals as well and learn what they know. But now that I'm in the industry and working, I do pay for the classes, online classes. If there's technology I want to learn, I'll pay for it. So it's kind of, give and take. I went the collegiate setting, but I'm also trying to force myself to keep up with all this new technology and learn it as well.
Because it's changing all the time.
It's changing every minute is what it feels like.
I went to the University of Arizona because my family lived in Arizona and I could afford to go to that state school. I am incredibly lucky that the instructor that was there at the time was exactly the person that I needed at that point in my life. And then I couldn't afford to go to most summer stocks because they didn't pay a living wage. And I think that is very important to say loud on this microphone. And many still don't pay a living wage. And summer stock is a vital training ground, especially for people working in entertainment. And I think that we need to be supporting those programs even more. I went to the Santa Fe Opera as an apprentice and then worked as a lighting supervisor there. And it was minimum wage, but they paid overtime and you were paid for the hours that you worked, not a flat fee that is nothing. And I am a big proponent of I don't think you can learn this craft unless you do it. And we need more opportunities for people to do this craft and be able to pay for themselves to do it. I moved to New York City because I couldn't afford to go anywhere else. I was looking at design programs. I was looking at all these internships that I couldn't afford to do because I needed to pay my rent. So how do it's an age old question, but we need to build these programs. If a person is not ready to go and work and they don't feel ready to go out and work, how do we still support them that maybe isn't grad school?
I'm going to echo what she said. So I want to clarify the summer stuff that I did was not summer stock because they didn't pay a living wage. I was only looking at internships that paid a living wage. That was it. So that's kind of filtered a lot of things away from my ability to do them because there wasn't a living wage.
Yeah, so I got my BFA from Webster University, and I had grown up doing theater, so I was like, well, if I want to do lighting, I'm going to do theater, and I um, went to school, and I thought that New York was the only option. I mean, I loved theater, don't get me wrong, but I didn't know about anything else. The school didn't really expand on what all the other career options were, and then ACT came and taught an MA2 class my junior year. Yeah, so I sat in this MA2 class for 2 days, and it was the most fun learning I'd had ever. I was like, whoa, this is what I'm supposed to do. So then I asked them about an internship. They said, yep. So I came out, I interned with them my senior year of college. And then they said, well, if you want to, you can have a job if you're ready for blah, blah, blah. So I ended up working for them after college. And then I spent 5 years doing tech support where I swear I actually got my degree. Loved my college experience. There's so many aspects of design I learned and some people skills and just some advice I still take very dear to this day. But my 5 years in tech support is where I felt like I actually, like I said, I got my degree. And it's because the technology was missing in school. Right? I'd heard this word timecode. I'd never set it up. We didn't really learn anything. I learned about IP addresses, I think, my first week of tech support. Now I can network stuff together, no problem. But in college, that was really scary because no one sat down and taught us the technology.
That's something I've noticed too, is that college teaches you the theoreticals. It teaches you how to tear apart a script and figure out the design portion of it, but it doesn't really teach you the technology portion of it. Like, sure, you program your show, but there's a huge lack of technology learning in the collegiate setting. And I think a lot of that has to do, sorry, I think a lot of that has to do with money, is that collegiate settings don't have the money to buy the technology.
We have come full circle back to kind of the ask to manufacturers, dealers, distributors about access to technology. Because you're right, there isn't enough money to buy things for a school that are going to be what the three of you are encountering day to day on your job, right? So somehow that needs to get in there, and there isn't. We're back to money again. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then like I remember in college we got 8 Vipers. That was a big deal. I only went to college like 8 years ago. It wasn't that long ago, guys. But that was our big technology push. Was our 8 Vipers. But yeah, so sorry, now I lost my train of thought. I got really excited about those Vipers. Anyway, that's a testament to like, hey, we do need this stuff.
Okay, you're actually lost. Okay, great. Let's yeah, so access to technology. And then what was from Jess and Naomi, what was something that if you could wave a magic wand, you would have had more of in your program?
Technology.
Technology.
Yeah.
Jess?
Exposure to professionals and having access to people. Like, we had once a year this phenomenal program where we were able to meet people who are working professionally. But if I could wave a magic wand, I would also just say, just reach out to people, because it was also on me. Like, I didn't have somebody say, well, I didn't have the confidence to blindly reach out to people. And so I learned the hard way to suck it up and just do that. So if I could wave a magic wand, and what I always try and tell kids is like, just suck it up, send the blind email. It's worth it. Don't worry about it. I promise it's okay.
I was exposed to lots of theatrical professionals, which is why I chose where I went to school, but that's not what I'm doing. I do concerts and TV and weird events, you know? So, but I wish we'd been exposed to other professionals and I could have seen maybe from an earlier, it took me till my senior year to go, oh, I'm going to join the concert world, right? Whereas maybe, if I'd met someone 2 years prior or whatever, or if that act had taught the class my freshman year, maybe I would have spent more of those years better preparing myself for this side of my life.
I keep hearing these recurring themes about like PR. We need to like get all the information about all the things that exist in this industry out to all the people who might be interested, right? And that's including the entire industry in college programs, right? But it's also making sure that people who are out there in some complete other field also know that this is a career option. But I think we're in a wave of, maybe it's the third or fourth or fifth or 10th wave of professionalizing, but there's another leap happening now, which is fundamentally the topic of this panel, of increasing complexity, right? Where there's less and less that we can kind of wing it. We're like, oh, now this is a very serious network setup. You can't really wing that in the same way we could 15 years ago. I want to switch topics slightly and ask you specifically some technology questions. I think, Araya, you were the one talking about AI and the things that you're excited about. Was that you or Naomi? So I would love to know, what are you really excited about in terms of AI? What are you concerned about? And are there ways that this is integrated into your workflows? Where are you seeing this in the entertainment industry?
I don't use AI at all, except to help me write a macro that I can't figure out on my own. I don't really want to use AI because I'm worried that AI is going to take jobs away from people. I only use AI to help with programming. If I'm having an issue with syntax, let's say like I'm really well known on an ETC or MA console and I'm jumping to something completely different, I'll type into ChatGPT or whatever and say, "This is how I would, type the syntax on this console. Now tell me how to do it on a different console that I don't know how to touch." So that's really the only way I'm using AI.
You can also say what you're concerned about.
I am a vocal opponent of this particular thing, and I think that we use a all-encompassing term as AI when we're really talking about large language models. And I think that back to, I think we might potentially be losing a decent amount of skill set by people just typing into a computer. But
I have a very different opinion. Um,
yeah,
AI doesn't do any thinking. It is just deciding based on a lot of information. Like, okay, this is what I think that like I said, doesn't do any thinking, but this is the most probable outcome for what you just asked me, right? So with knowing that, I'm like, okay, it is a tool that's now at my fingertips that we all didn't have, even a year, 2 years ago. Not like it is every single day. So I currently use it when I'm writing and I'm working on content. I couldn't make as much content as I do without AI. And I would have quit if I hadn't started using it. Like it really has helped that for me. Because I can feed it scripts, videos to caption things. Like it captions things. I wouldn't caption anything without AI. You know how much time that takes? So it's really making it possible to keep educating because of the tool that it does all the mundane things that would get really, really boring in the end. And I'm kind of hoping because it's come into my life in this way that it will eventually enter into programming for me in the same way. So now I'll be programming along and I'll be like, man, I just did this same thing like, you know, 12 times. Like every group that has this fixture type in it, make it pink. Right? Now I'm not individually appearancing every single group. AI just did it for me. And now I can do something else. So my hope and my excitement is that it will start taking those little tasks from me while I'm programming so that I can focus more time on creating. I would much rather sit there with a whole line of pixels making some really cool effect than making sure my console is super organized. And but half of my job is keeping it organized. So if it can assist me in organizing it, bring it on.
That leads me into the next question about, aside from AI, are there technologies that you see that are coming up or on the verge of coming up that are going to become part of professional practice? And what problems are they solving?
I'm excited for the new Lightright version that just dropped because it's collaboration, right? So instead of sending a file and making sure I'm sending the most updated file for someone else to edit, it's all in the cloud. It's all collaborative already. So that was really awesome to learn about a few days ago when they dropped it.
I don't think I quite have the words yet. I'm almost there. So pass it on.
Oh, I don't have an answer. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. It can also be, is there something that exists in your workflow or professional life now that you wish someone would invent technology for? A thing that is like, oh, that kind. I mean, this is how Vor came about. Right?
Correct.
There was a thing that needed to happen, and
Yeah.
no one had invented something to deal with it.
Correct. And I think that because of that and like how frankly, and I admit like narrow sometimes the theatrical space is there are very clear tools about how you are able to solve each problem. And I think that something I am excited for is watching smaller applications start getting bigger and bigger and start growing into more all-encompassing solutions versus just a lighting specific, a sound specific, like and integrating cross platforms and being able to see a holistic picture of a show outside of Vor. That's like
Right. And coming back to some of the roles that we were talking about earlier, of roles that are emerging where there's a synthesis of multiple different across multiple different areas. Therefore, we now need software systems and technology that will help with that, not just a guy with a spreadsheet and a pencil.
yeah, and I'm excited for some very smart people who are not me to like modernize MIDI and like new protocols like that that can communicate and create some a better way to talk between systems.
So, with rapid pace of technology changing, I'm also curious, have we created a system in which people are being left behind? And, what does that look like when things change so quickly? What effect does that have? It's a similar question about like if everything costs something, then there's certain people who are left out of that equation, which we would love to address. But
I think it goes two ways, right? If there's new technology, you're either the person that wants to learn it and you're a go-getter and you go learn it, or you say, "Oh, that's too complicated for me. I'm done," or "I'm fine with where I'm at." But it also goes back to the monetary issue, right? With the new technology, who's going to pay to learn it,
access,
and how do you get your hands on it to learn it?
I hear you
I don't know if this
thinking.
answers your question, but this has been a really interesting observation for me. Doing tech support when we were moving from GrandMA 2 to GrandMA 3, I know two wonderful programmers. They're in their 60s. They've learned so many consoles in their lifetime.
Yeah.
Watching them learn another one was inspiring. I was like, you guys are like, whatever, here's the next one. Let's learn about the selection grid. Let's talk about recipes. They called every single day, but it was just like, okay, this is the next thing we're learning. Whereas you talk to people in their 30s who have only learned one thing. They spent 15 years building their career on it, and now we're saying, sorry, you need to switch. This is better, I promise. And it was a harder push because they hadn't already learned 4 consoles in their lifetime. And so now I'm sitting back going, you know what? I'm going to try to take in a little bit of what I learned from my 2 older programmer friends, going, okay, when this happens to me, I'm going to harness what they felt because I know I'll get there when I go, oh, I have to learn something new, but I just built my career on this thing I learned for 15 years.
So I do see where that pushback is coming from for younger people not wanting to learn, is because in most collegiate settings, you only have access to ETC consoles. Where's the MAs? Where are the Avalites? Like all these other consoles that are available that the industry uses, but collegiate settings only use ETC. So when you have students that are graduating, they're like, "Oh, well, I can't apply to this because I don't know the MA. I can't apply to this because I don't know how to program a lighting whatever in QLab." They only know how to program one console, so they feel like they're shoved in a little box and can't apply to anything else.
That is really loud. Yeah. This is a really interesting point because when I was asking this question, in my mind, I was thinking, yeah, well, it's older people who are getting left behind, right? Because you're like, oh my gosh, I've learned too many things now, and I'm going to tap out. That's one version of something too far. But you're bringing up a great point about, I guess what I would refer to as nimbleness, right? So if someone has learned an ecosystem, they now know how console programming works. And the next one they're learning, they already know what is possible. They just need to figure out how to do it on that desk rather than what is even possible here. And I feel like what you're describing, Naomi, is almost a fear of, oh no, but both of you, I mastered this thing. And now you're going to make me do another thing and I'm going to be a beginner in that. But fundamentally, doesn't this go back to one of Jess's soft skills of flexibility and nimbleness within the entertainment industry? So I'm this is an open-ended question about leading question about what does it take to be successful in this industry?
I mean, that's exactly what I did for the job I have right now. I only knew ETC consoles before this position, and I saw the job posting open, and I said, okay, I have 2 weeks before my interview. I'm learning the MA2 because that's the console we have. So I learned enough of it within 2 weeks to get the job. You have to be willing to do the work to make it in this career.
I'm going to ask you to say your question again because I got stuck on the answer I was going to say with technology and being left behind. I think that so I'm going to answer that real quick if you bear with me. I feel like the grind of existing in this society, we've lost play. And I think that so much of our journey in knowledge and education is based in play. And I just think that someone who's smart out there could maybe figure out how to make it a little bit more enjoyable to learn and play.
That is such a great idea. Let's bring play and joy and whimsy and insert all of that into learning. Yeah. And I wonder too if there's a pressure about the money part of it, where if it's costing a lot, the stakes feel high and it has to end in a specific goal, and suddenly we've leached some of the play and joy out of all of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, what was the question I was supposed to answer?
So people succeeding in the industry, and it was a little bit leading in terms of this discussion about flexibility and nimbleness of thinking and being able to jump from one form of technology to the next version of that.
I think that critical thinking is really like the key in that, and being able to, I'm gonna be honest, I've literally never touched an console, full stop. I think I might be able to figure out how to turn a light on, but that's using critical thinking and being flexible and being like, okay, no, this concept I know from this idea is most likely transferable to this, which can go across so many different things. If you think about, okay, I know how DMX works. I can probably figure out how a copper signal needs to go for audio, and transferring those ideas between the two, three, four, five.
All right. So critical thinking. What would you say is necessary for success in the entertainment industry?
Like, is nimbleness necessary?
Pardon me?
Like, is nimbleness necessary?
You could even come up with a whole other idea. That was just the thing I'm throwing out there. But like, as open ended, what are like key components? Given the fact that we exist in this industry where technology is changing all the time, what are things that are useful for people to be cultivating?
Staying flexible, staying excited, and staying eager. And also I would say just having the courage to step out and, like you said, be the beginner again. It's hard. I've sat with people who are switching from 2 to 3, and I have no judgment. I'm just like, "All right, let's learn some stuff. Let's go." But you can tell it took a lot of courage to sit down and go, "I'm gonna do this next show on this new platform." And then once you're in, you're hooked. So I promise you, you're gonna do great. But that took a step in all of those things. They had to be flexible and wanting to learn, excited about it, and then courageous enough to step out and do it.
That's great. Naomi?
Honestly, the same thing. To get this job, I had to be flexible to learn a new console. And I won't lie, I was nervous to learn a new console. For however many years I was only on an ETC console. I understood it back to front. And then, it's like me and learning languages. I can't learn languages. I know English and that's it. So I kind of view learning syntax as a language, but you're speaking computer. So I was nervous, but if you're willing and you really want something, you'll go do it and you'll push yourself.
So we have 10 minutes or so left in this, and we're curious if there are any questions from the audience for any of our panelists.
Hi. What is the best advice that you got from another woman in the industry whenever you were coming in and building your career?
Don't be worried to be yourself. Going back to authenticity, be authentic and don't be afraid of who you are.
I guess it's kind of similar, but if you can't hide it, feature it.
One of the best pieces of advice I ever got, especially when it comes to working as a female identifying person in a male dominated industry, is no matter what, someone is going to underestimate you, and don't give them a reason to do that. All you can do is show up, be yourself, do your job to the best of your ability, and you will prove them wrong every single time.
Fantastic. Other questions?
Hi. I'm considering going to grad school next year, and I'm wondering what you guys think are the pluses and minuses of it. And I'm also concerned about the learning new technology within an educational setting and how I can apply that after graduation.
So I'll speak because I did go to grad school. I do have my master's. I would say still go. I know that collegiate settings have a lack of technology, but I found myself and found who I was as a designer in grad school. It's because of the people I knew, the amount of work that I did. But the technology, you can teach yourself technology, but you learn to become a human in school. And I went to grad school because graduating with my bachelor's, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do in the industry yet. And I specifically chose a program of people that knew other people to make those connections and just to make more connections with people that were in school as well. And those that, I graduated with, we're now working professionals in this industry, and we constantly connect with each other again and connect with students and other professionals.
Yeah, if you have a great reason to go that is for yourself, that is not for the universe or for people here saying, oh no, you have to go to grad school. If it's for you, if it's for yourself, do it.
Yeah, do it for yourself. And I will say, if you want to teach as well, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but most schools that are hiring professors want you to have a master's.
We have started ditching that as an industry.
Awesome.
It's a hot minute, but yeah, there is most places now will do MFA or experience in lieu of. Yeah,
That's
which
even
is
better.
a change that has been dreadfully needed for many, many decades.
It's mine's short, but I remember being asked a lot, "Are you going to go to get your master's after?" And I said, "Well, one day if I feel like it." And I haven't felt like it yet. So I guess it echoes what they said. If you want to do it, go do it for you.
And I'll throw in that you want a really clear reason to do that. And there's some good reasons, like you want to study with a specific person who teaches at that place. That's a good reason, and learn what they do. Or you want to move to a specific location, and going to grad school in that location will get you connected with the entire industry there. See me after, I'll give you a list of questions to ask every program. I think there was another question.
Yep, here in the front, yeah.
I was wondering, how do you deal with feelings of insecurity coming into a developed industry already?
Ah, imposter syndrome.
I
my favorite
still
topic.
deal with that.
I have to admit, the only way I got over imposter syndrome was doing it more and more and more, and putting myself in spaces where I felt uncomfortable but knew I had to just be myself, which this entire space is begging you to not be yourself. And I'm telling you that they are all wrong, because you are the greatest asset you can bring to any situation. And having a small little mantra being like, no, their path is their path, my path is my path. I'm going to step into this space. I am who I am. All I can do is be me.
So I'm going to go back to kind of reading people's interactions and features. Like when you're talking to someone, the more you believe in yourself, the more everyone else around you is going to believe that you know what you're doing. So fake it till you make it. Like that's how I started in this career, is I believed in myself that even if I'm insecure about something, the more I force myself to do it, the more comfortable I will be with it. So prime example, I'm not a huge public speaker, but sitting up here, like it's been great. Like I've enjoyed doing this and I would do it again. The more I force myself outside of my comfort zone, the more comfortable I get.
I'm actually going to go back to our mentor mentee conversation. Anytime I have that feeling, I think of something that there's a couple different phrases that have been said to me to like speak life into me over the years. And I focus on that. I'm like, if this person believes in me, why do I not believe in me? I am in my body. I should believe in me as much as they do. They're not invested in my life like I am, but they have the ability to say, I want to see you succeed. So I literally have a couple of them, a screen. One was a text, which was awesome. I literally go read the screenshot of that text over and over again until I feel what they felt inside me. So if that moment hasn't happened to you yet, just reach out to those people, tell them how you're feeling, and just let them speak life into you, because you will feel that life in return.
Having your hype squad is so important. Like having the people around you who will absolutely gas you up. A+.
You guys, that's beautiful. That's really fantastic. Are there other questions?
Hi. I'm also in my senior year of undergrad, and I'm examining a little bit of I'd like to be an assistant and follow that pipeline rather than the grad school pipeline. And I'm wondering if you have any advice on reaching out to designers and how one starts being an assistant.
I assume that you are asking about being an assistant in like a traditional theater setting, opera, theater, dance. Jess.
All right. Okay, so reach out to everybody, meet people for coffee, and your network of peers your age are going to get you more work than a Tony Award-winning lighting designer, because they're going to hire the next person on their list. But your friend who can't take a job is going to say, I can't do this job, but my buddy Sue can. And you'll get so much more work that way. And building up that network is so important, in addition to reaching out to designers to say, hi, I'm available for work and I'd like to meet you for coffee to see if we vibe. Reach out to people who work as associates, who are career associates who always need staffing, and be available to just talk at a coffee and then remind people you exist, because we are very, very good at forgetting people exist.
And then this is just more fine, soft skill advice. But when you're in those moments, the best advice my dad ever gave me was everyone's favorite topic is themselves. So when you're talking to someone, ask them questions about themselves because they're gonna feel the love of like, oh, this person's interested in me.
All right. I think we had another question there in the front row. Yeah.
I just wanted to say what a very empowering and honest panel it was, and that I very much wish there would have been women on stage like this when I was younger. And my question is, do you think that the balance in the industry is changing a little? Are we seeing more women coming into this industry? What's your opinion?
Is the industry changing in terms of balance of women? Are you seeing more women in the industry? Are we reaching some kind of, 50-50 split?
From a theatrical space, I can say that in the last 10 to 12 years that I've been working, I've absolutely seen more and more women come into positions of power, which is fascinating once we start getting into the history of theatrical lighting design, but that's a topic for a different hour. Um, and I'm certainly seeing it increase, which thrills me. And I love that, especially in my theatrical space, is I am a big proponent of that change. And so it's been really, really great to see the fruits of our effort actually start shifting things in the right direction.
So I was going to say the same thing. In power, like people that have supervisor or designer titles, I see more women coming into those positions. But when we're still looking at the technicians and stagehands, etc., I still see it more male dominated. So in more of the physical positions, I see more men, and most of the people I supervise are men. But a lot of people that I work designing with, etc., are women.
This is slightly, I don't know if this actually is accurate to the demographic, but I get a lot of Instagram metrics. And if you're interested, 9% of my followers are women. That makes 91% of them men. So either women don't want education online or that's a accurate number. So I don't know. That's just what I've learned.
What are you seeing in your experience, like out on tour?
Um, I feel like there's a lot of times I am the only woman in a room, or there's one other one. So that to me goes back to that, like, I feel like I'm still in that like 10%. Or like there was a bunch of TV shows I was on this year. I was like, oh, I'm the only girl here right now. But it's fine. Like, but I would like to see it change. I was on a tour last year where like there were 4 of us girls, like as part of like the design team, and we're all sitting at a table, and I was like, I love our discussions right now. It was so much fun. But that was my only situation I was in like that in the last 2 years.
So some variability depending on what like sector of the entertainment industry you're in. And thank you so much. Let's have a big round of applause for our panelists.